one thing that has always confused me is percent change or percent increase. So if someone says something increased by 200%, what does that mean? Is that the same thing as saying it doubled? So I want to look at those two things, percent change and if you say something doubled or increased by a factor of 2. So let's look at that. Let's start with percent change. I'm just going to write out the formula. So you may remember that it's the final number minus the original number, all divided by the original number. And this actually just gives us the fraction, so we have to multiply by 100 to get the percentage. So let's just do an example to see whether that makes sense. Let's say you went from 10 to 20. So 20 would be your final number. You subtract your original number and then divide by the original number, and you multiply by 100. And as you can see, that's 10 over 10 times 100, which is just 100. So that's a 100% increase. All right, let's look at when someone says something doubled or increased by a factor of 2 or increased twofold. Those are all the same. And let's just call that F for factor or fold or whatever. So what's the formula for that? Really, let's just think about it. If you go from 10 to 20, that's doubling. Really what you're doing is you're just taking the final number and dividing by the original number. And as you can see, 20 divided by 10 is 2. And so that makes sense. Or you could easily see if you've gone from 10 to 30, 30 divided by 10 would be 3. So it increased by a factor of 3. So I want to go back to the percent change formula, and I just want to rewrite it ever so slightly and separate our terms on the top. So we're going to take final minus original, or final divided by original, minus original divided by original, and all of that is still multiplied by 100. So in case it's not obvious to you whether that's a legal move, let's just do another quick example with real numbers, and we'll just take any fraction. And basically what we're saying is, is this the same as saying 5 divided by 2 minus 1 divided by 2? All we've done is just separate the numerators, but keep them over the same denominators. And as we can see, this is 4 divided by 2, and this is also 4 divided by 2. So that checks out. But you may notice that this term right here is quite similar to this term right here. So we can actually just substitute that in, just call that F. And then this term, a number divided by itself, as we all know, is just 1. So this is what you end up with, and this is actually the final form of the formula. So what does that mean? What that means is if someone says something doubled or increased by a factor of 2, all you have to do is plug that in, subtract 1, and multiply by 100. So let's see if that checks out. In our example of 10 to 20, we're saying that it doubled. We subtract 1 and multiply by 100, so that gives you still a 100% increase. So it turns out that a factor of 2 is actually a 100% increase. Now going the other way, I'll do in a separate lesson. If you know the percent increase and you want to get to your factor, whether being able to say whether it doubled or tripled, that's going to look a little different. But for now, this is the final formula that we're looking for. In case this is still a little bit abstract to you, let's just do a couple more examples. Let's say something went from 10 to 30, so you know that it tripled. So what is the percent increase? Well, you just take 3 minus 1, and you get 2, and then you multiply that by 100. So that is a 200% increase. If you know that something increased by a factor of 4.5, you would just take 4.5 minus 1 times 100 and get a 350% increase. So that's all it is. If someone says it tripled or it increased tenfold, you would say 10 minus 1 is 9, and then multiply by 100, or move the decimal place, and you'd get 900%. So just subtract 1 and add 2 zeros.